Hello, and welcome to Ep.2 of Downbeat, a podcast created by the Gamma chapter of Kappa Kappa Psi here at the University of Washington. We're going to unofficially call this podcast episode Squawk Talk. My name is Oliver Kou. I'm a clarinet and bass clarinet player in the wind ensemble. I'm a part of the Alpha Iota class, the current Shunky family head, and the immediate past Western District member at large. In this episode, I have other members of the Alpha Iota class, the oldest active class, here to reflect on our time in the chapter by reliving their favorite projects or events that we've hosted or attended over the years, and think about how the chapter has changed over the years. I'll let them introduce themselves.
All right. I'm Michelle Asensio. I play flute and piccolo, and now I play piano thanks to Gamma. I'm in the Caldwell family, and I'm also family head. I have a beautiful line. And in Gamma, I've been historian, social chair, and this year I'm director of post-membership education. And a fun fact is that I've been on 96 flights in my whole life so far, and I won't be going on any soon because of COVID.
All right. My name is Jamie Plansich. I am also part of the Alpha Iota class. I'm part of the Shepherd Craig family, or Shep Craig for short. I play saxophone, and currently I am the director of ceremonies, so I'm in charge of planning all of the rituals that we do as a fraternity. And a fun fact about me, I was on my high school's hip-hop team for 4 years, and of those 4 years, we went to state and got first in state 2 years.
All right, and then I'm Kristen Lyersoff. I play the piccolo in the Husky Marching Band, and I'm in the Shunky family. I have not held any leadership positions, but a fun fact is that I was one of the leads for States Days a few years ago.
Hi, my name's Jillian Sonderegger, and I am a clarinet also, and also in the Shunky family. In Gamma, I have also been the director of ceremonies, as Jamia is currently. A fun fact about me, I am a registered advanced scuba diver, so I can go up to like 100 feet underwater. It's pretty fun, and I enjoy being in the ocean.
So as you can see, we have a lot of Shunkies here today. Go Shunks. But the fun fact about me, I started throwing around a disc when I was in 7th grade, and now I can toss a disc about 80 or 90 yards on a good day. So yeah, it's a fun fact about me. So let's move into our discussion topics. So in terms of favorite projects that we've done over the years, I'd like to think one that is near and dear to my own heart because I got to lead it was Enya at the end of the year. And for those of you who don't know what Enya is, we, as a chapter, after formal chapter at the end of the year, we choose to stay behind for those who actually can. And it's a bonding sort of activity. And really bummed that this year's new active class might not be able to experience that until next year. But it honestly is one of my favorite things that we do in this chapter year in, year out.
So my favorite project is for the service committee, and it's called Junior Senior Day. And basically, juniors and seniors from high schools get to come and play with the Husky Marching Band. So it's like a big recruitment event for them, but it's one of the times that we really get to work not only with bands on campus, but like high schoolers and younger people. And I think that's one of the really cool things about Gamma is that it's not just like the bands on campus. We also work on trying to make sure that we're reaching out to other bands and other communities. And I just really love it. And it makes me really excited and happy.
My favorite project that we repeatedly do in Gamma is our table flipping project. And so table flipping is done by the fundraising committee, where at the end of the quarters, during like dead week and finals, when everyone has all that anger and frustration, is we set up tables outside of the hub, and people can come and flip them and like let out all their anger. And it's been one of my favorite projects that we've worked on.
One of my favorite projects, which I actually created during my first year as active, is Brotherhood Assassin. I originally had the idea when I was still a potential member, and I had just decided to attend a Brotherhood committee meeting just because I could, and another brother was like, hey, you should come along. And they were talking about different events to do for, it was either for a retreat or Brotherhood Olympics or some other kind of game that they wanted to, involve the chapter in. And I brought up how at my high school we did a game similar to like Assassin, where you have a target and you have to go after someone, and then but at the same time someone's coming after you. So the following spring I decided to kind of like implement this within the chapter, and there's probably about like 10, maybe 15 brothers that decided to do it, but like people really enjoyed it. And then the following year I decided to bring it back again, but I decided to change an element of the game. It used to be that you had to tear a like paper ribbon off someone's backpack or their back, but we had an issue with people weren't wearing them, or like people didn't know what to do. And so I had the idea of adding in what we call sad boy stickers. They're just a little frowny face that's red. And yep, Oliver has one. And so you have to like tag your target and then you take them out. And I don't lead the project anymore. I've passed the baton on that, but it's still definitely one of my favorite projects. And it was always fun, like getting the pictures or videos like of the proof of kill, so to speak. And I would always make like an end of the quarter video with all of like the death pictures and all the sad faces. And yeah, it was always really fun to be a part of it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed getting killed all those times by assassins. Also, gonna shout out my little Caitlin, who was the first master assassin. Then I think she was overtaken by Elizabeth Stanton.
Yeah, I don't really remember, but I love that one just because like it forces you to get to know a brother that you aren't necessarily as close with. And so then you have to like stalk them and figure out their schedule and where they're going to be on campus. And you feel like a bit of a creep, but it's like, it's fun to get to know people.
Brotherhood, brotherly creepiness.
Yeah.
Michelle, wasn't it you that didn't you kill Karina while you guys were on a boat together?
I have some good stories. There was one, I killed Jonah while biking on the Burt Gilman. He was jogging, but I was on a bike, so I was faster. So I stalked him down literally and got a sticker on him. And then I also killed Karina while we were canoeing in the middle of Lake Washington. That was a really, really good day. And then my other really good kill was I had to return some game controllers to Emily Clear, I believe. And so when I gave her controllers back, I also gave her a sticker. She was very thankful. She really wasn't. So
I had one where one of my littles was trying to get me. And so my other little planned like a brunch for our entire line. And then the little who was trying to assassinate me got me like the second that we got to the restaurant. And then I just had to sit at this brunch and pretend that I was like okay with being killed by my own little, and like both of them turning against me. It was bad.
True
betrayal.
Love. True family love.
My favorite is when it's like one of your friends and they actually make something. So I had Christine as my target, and she texted me to hang out and was like, oh, perfect. You just did all of the work for me.
That's awesome.
I also liked how we called the Husky Union building as not a safe zone. And, without fail, any day when you walk into the hub, you'll see a brother or two. And maybe they're your target, or maybe they're out to get you. You never know.
Yeah. I had one where I was killed, and then I walked over to talk to somebody else, and the person who killed me then, their target was the person that I was talking to, so they killed two people like back to back.
I remember I was, I think it was one of the first few quarters that I was running it, where I had to like come up with like the list of rules and like what places are safe and what places aren't. And so it was like, I like kept going back and forth on like, well, I don't want to make like the dorms a safe zone, but maybe only the lobbies. And that's why I kept going back and forth on the hub of like, it was too hard to like it's just easier to like just make you run for your life per se. But I think when I first brought it up, like Patrick Stanton had like texted me. He's like, "Hey, I have some questions. Like, I just want to clarify, make sure I'm understanding the rules right." And I was like, "Yeah, you can't like kill someone in the building, but like hypothetically, if you like climbed up to their window and were outside of the building, you could do it." And he was like, "Bro, I'm gonna do it."
Oh, Patrick.
Yeah, that was our old family head. Speaking of old family heads, if we're throwing it back to junior senior day, one of our old family heads, Rom, was actually one who created that project for Gamma.
Yep.
It's kind of cool to learn about the lore of the chapter that way at some second degree in the past.
Yeah, and seeing how much the event has grown, especially, is kind of mind-blowing.
Overall, I think the Shankly family has a lot of lore also.
Mm-hmm.
The most secret lore that nobody knows but us.
Wasn't Rom also the one who he was like chapter president and section leader and like something else all at the same time?
He did a lot of leadership stuff. I don't know how much like overlap there was,
And
but I
he's
think like
also a civil
section leader
engineer.
yeah, he's civil, but I think section leader and president at the same time sounds right.
That's impressive.
Mm-hmm. Michelle, did you have a favorite project that you didn't share yet?
Yes, I finally picked one because I can just, like, I love junior senior day. I love Boy Scouts. I love retreat. I love everything. But there's a smaller project that I probably talk about a lot, but why not talk about it again? It was the music committee's instrument exchange program for my freshman year. We were all given pieces of paper during chapter and we're told to write down an instrument that we wanted to learn, our name, and an instrument we were willing to teach. And so I was like, I've always loved piano. So I just wrote it down. And then a few weeks later, I got assigned to learn piano from Eric Westergaard, who graduated last year. And so a lot of people with their pairs, they just met once. I think Kristen, you taught someone oboe.
Yeah, like you and Eric had a lesson, and then I came in and I taught Eric oboe immediately after he had just taught you piano.
Yeah. So some people, they just met once and like learned like about little on the instrument, but I had my first lesson and it was really fun. And so I asked to do another lesson and try to keep learning piano. So I had lessons with Eric almost weekly throughout spring quarter, and I ended up being able to pick it up, which kind of blew my mind, mostly because I didn't think I was capable of that, but I was. And I'm not like amazing, but it's amazingly fun. And I think it also let me get closer to people like Michelle, Tam, and Austin, who also play piano, because then we could talk about those things, and like they would share songs with me. And then when I would go places and there would be like a public piano, I'd actually be able to sit down and play something simple and then meet people at those pianos, from Seattle to France to Portland. So I don't know, it was just like overall like another example of music as universal language, and also like the fact that you're never too old to learn something new. I don't know if the project's still going on. I don't think anyone's really continued with it. Like a lot of people will do one or two lessons, I think, but I haven't really heard much of other people like doing it like repeatedly. So I don't know if you guys know if it's still going on in music committee or not, though. I guess not social distancing, but
I mean, every once in a while I feel like I hear about like, hey, let's get this thing started again, and then it maybe doesn't like come to fruition sometimes.
that sounds about right. It was a really fun project though for me my freshman year, so I'm glad that it was happening then. So
We have a lot of projects as a chapter.
facts.
But what is your favorite event that you've gone to, right? There are projects that we put on, but there's also things that we might go to together as, you know, a social committee or as a brotherhood. I would say my favorite event that we've gone to is probably retreat. Even though I've only been able to go once, it was amazing. Like, I can't really find any other descriptors to describe it, because it was just a fun weekend getting to know everybody, and also getting to know people on a deeper level through Brotherhood playlists. And what these Brotherhood playlists are is before everybody drives off to the campsite, you'll choose 5 or so songs that have some significant meaning to you about your life. And on the Saturday evening of retreat, everybody divides up into groups and shares their songs and shares what these songs mean to them. And it's a really nice way to break down some barriers and get to know some brothers that you might not have previously known, which was great. I got to know a lot of people. One of my favorite things that we've done outside of Enya.
What year did you go to retreat?
I went sophomore year.
That sounds right.
Yeah, I went in Patrick's car, and we went to his house before going to retreat and picked up literally all of the things. And I remember being able, it was just a fun time assembling everything and Jengaing everything into his car. And man, this car was packed with supplies. Like, the entire trunk was filled to the brim.
I would actually say that retreat is also my favorite event, and I would just wanted to go off and say one other thing that we did. I went last year and absolutely loved it. We also took a little walk down to the creek, and I think that was maybe one of my, besides the Brotherhood playlist, as Oliver already mentioned, but the walking to the creek and everyone just like getting in it or just like throwing rocks. It was just true fun, and I really enjoyed it.
Sploosh.
Yeah, on the topic of retreat and going down to the creek, I've gone, I guess, 2 years now. Sad that it couldn't happen this year. But when we took that little like family journey down to the creek, I was one of the people who decided, I was like, you know what? It's like 45 degrees and raining. I'm gonna go in the creek because why not? So I like took my socks and shoes off and I like rolled up my sweatpants and I'm like wading through the water, and everyone was like, Jamie, like get out of there, like you're gonna get frostbite. I was like, my feet are starting to get warm now, you know, it's going great. And I remember the first year I went, I did the same thing as well. And I think it was Elizabeth and Alex that had to help me like put my shoes back on because I was like wanting to put the socks back on, but like I need to get like the sand and the water off of them. And then the next year, I was like coming out of the river again. I was like, no, I'm not gonna ask for your guys' help. I'm gonna figure it out by myself this time. And spoiler alert, I was not able to figure it out, and I ended up having them have to pick me up again to help me put my shoes back on.
I'm pretty sure I have documented this both years. There are so many photos of this happening. They're all such great photos.
There's some pretty good like side-by-side shots of year 1, year 2 not really learning my lesson.
I feel like every year at retreat it always ends up raining. And I remember so I went like a few years ago, and the first night our entire tent was like covered in like water by the end of like the first night. And I was like, I am not doing this again. And so I slept in Patrick's car because I just like didn't want to do it. So I slept like basically just like sitting up just because I didn't want to sleep in a puddle.
Okay, but I lent you, Kristen, I lent you my sleeping bag. I had 2. One of them happened to be waterproof. I didn't know. And that's the one I gave away to you. And the one I was in was just like soaked.
Yep.
Darn. I should have known.
Michelle saves me a lot.
It's fine because I love her.
Camping in the Pacific Northwest be like.
Yeah.
I remember it was last year that it rained just as much as it did the year before, but for some reason like my tent was like mostly dry the first year, and then the next year it just like did not stay dry, and I was like screw this, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I decided to not sleep in my tent and decided to sleep in my car. And I think Baylor and Alex Bazell, they were both in my car as well for driving over there, and they're like, hey, we don't want to sleep in our tents either because it's wet and cold. Can we join you in your car? And so I have a sedan, which is not a very big car, but the back seats can like fold down into the trunk. And so me and Buzz were like next to each other in there, and I think Baylor was in the front seat with it like reclined back as far as it could. And but it was dry, and that was really all we wanted.
Mm. And I would think after so many years, like the older members would be like, okay, guys, like maybe let's not do tents this year. Maybe let's just like sleep under like the little pavilion or like plan on sleeping in our cars. And we never learn. Like every year people get soaked and freezing. But like it's like the memories that you make with everybody. And like Oliver was talking about like brotherhood playlists and stuff. Yeah. This is also my favorite event. Just yeah.
I feel like it's also my favorite event. But it reminded me of a different event that's also my favorite event. So speaking of rain, I remember last year we were trying really, really hard to keep the fires going, and it was a huge struggle because of the rain, even like in the chimney, in the shelter. So that was a whole deal. But that reminded me of the campfire that we had at Alki Beach. This was also freshman year, where we had a night trip. And so we just all went out to Alki and like had a bonfire and s'mores. There was probably hot dogs. And what I really liked is Michelle Tam would bring her guitar to like any event that had a campfire. And she would always play these songs for us to sing. And it was just like, I don't know, it was always a really cute time. And it makes me want to learn guitar. Still haven't done that. Been meaning to during quarantine. But I don't know. Things like night trip or also day trip was another thing we did, where we went to Ken's house and also had a bonfire and s'mores. And I don't know, wherever there's a bonfire and s'mores, it's a good time.
When we went to Alki, I remember I was in one of the groups where I took the light rail and then the bus and then walked. I did that with Patrick, and it took forever, but it was really fun. I like got to know everyone a lot better who went on that trip, but we made the whole entire like, I didn't get in a car because I wanted to be there first. Also, I think I brought some of the supplies and stuff. But I got to know people before and at the event. It was very fun.
I remember that it was the very first time I ever took an Uber in my life, and my mom was terrified, and so she wanted to make sure I wasn't going alone. And I was talking to my big Holly, who also wanted to go to night trip. And so we ended up catching an Uber together. And that was just like a nice little moment where she was like, I'm gonna look out for you because you're my little kind of a thing. I don't know, it was nice. I remember like meeting her in Red Square and like the weather being nice and like chit-chatting on the way. So
I remember it showed up in my like Snapchat memories like a few days ago, and I like almost started crying because it's like all of the springtime events with Gamma are so much fun, and just like not being able to do all of this stuff for the last time is really, really hard.
when it showed up in my Snapchat memories, I did start crying.
Do you guys remember the night trip from 2 years ago that we attempted at Golden Gardens?
Yes, and the police kicked us out because it was like 10 p.m.
Yeah.
Yep.
So for those who don't know, Alki Beach is way, way farther from campus than Golden Gardens. So when I was Brotherhood Chair, I was thinking about doing the night trips, and why not go to a closer location for everybody? The thing about this closer location is that outside of the existing fire pits, you're not allowed to start your own fire for a bonfire. So one of the older actors at the time, Sarah Nishikawa, she's a fire twirler. And so what she did was start twirling some fire. And eventually one of the policemen came over and was like, no open flames. You can't do that. But we did get to roast a few marshmallows on her flames. They didn't taste the greatest, but you know.
I remember sharing a bonfire with someone else, or that might have been like a different trip to Alki the next year, but I remember like borrowing someone else's fire because we all just wanted s'mores that bad.
I think one of my other like favorite events, like as like outside of Gamma, is like traveling to like district events. And as we all remember from our freshman year, when the Western District Convention, or WDC, was over in Boise, Idaho, and I think it's the most members of Gamma we've ever had at a district event. We had like 4 or 5 cars worth of people, and there's this little town called Pendleton in Eastern Oregon. And all of us got stuck in it because like 100 miles of Highway 2 were like closed for some reason. Some truck had like lost its load. I don't know what it was. Someone's convinced that they were doing like nuclear bomb testing in the area, and that's like why it was actually closed. I don't know, but would have been like a 8 or 9 hour car ride turned into like 18 hours for some people.
A few cars ended up like staying at like a McDonald's, and like we all like got out our laptops and like logged onto like Wi-Fi and like tried to do our homework and stuff, just because it was taking so long to get there. And I remember when we showed up, we went to this workshop that was on like being tired or like taking care of yourself and like getting sleep and that kind of thing. And they were talking about how like driving with like no sleep is like close to like drunk driving, and all of us had just been driving for like 18 hours and we're college students, so we don't get much sleep to begin with. And it was just like that quick check-in of like, okay guys, like we need to take care of ourselves a little bit better. But it's for the memories, you know, good times.
It's probably my favorite old person story to tell as an Alpha Iota, because that was our, like, we were either PMs or like fresh actives. I don't remember the timing.
I think we were newly active.
I think we had just gone through third degree because none of us had membership cards yet, and I think like Holly Chan was in my car and she had to like sign for me to like prove that I was in fact a fully active brother.
That's adorable. Yeah, I remember things being like they were going so well, so smoothly. Like me and Kristen were in the same car, and we stopped by this field of flowers and took these cute photos with like our KKSI gear on and stuff. And then we stopped and got KFC, and then we tried to get on the highway and it didn't work. And yeah, I think it was like 100 miles. I think they spilled pipes or something, but like that didn't make sense. And so we kept trying to get further down the highway by taking back roads and trying to get on at different entrances to the highway. None of them worked. And then we looped around and went back to one that went through the mountains. And by then it was dark. I remember that, it was dark by then. And I remember going through the mountains and like Emma was like speeding down the road safely, but you know, it's dark, it's late, we're all exhausted. And I remember like seeing all the stars out the window because it's the middle of nowhere in Eastern Oregon. And it was really pretty. And it was also really terrifying, but it was also really pretty. And I was happy to be with my brothers. And then I also remember arriving at Christine's house at 5 a.m., like on the dot. And I think that made our car take exactly like 16 hours. It was something ridiculous like that. And we slept for a couple hours and then went to some workshop on getting enough sleep.
My car, first of all, it was not like my actual vehicle that we were driving. It was another brother who doesn't have their license but just had a car because like my parents didn't want me taking my car. It was like this whole other thing. So anyways, it's a vehicle that is not mine. Was missing one of the side mirrors, so it only had the driver's side and the rear view mirrors. There was no passenger side mirror. I was like, I don't even know if this is legal or what. Fun fact, you actually only need 2 out of 3 mirrors as long as the rear view mirror is one of them. So you only need the rear view mirror and one side mirror. But anyways, so when we like first heard that like we like the highway was closed, we like stopped by a gas station. We're like trying to connect to Wi-Fi, trying to find an alternate route. And we're like, okay, let's just like sleep for a couple hours because it was like midnight. And so we wake up like 1 a.m. We're all like groggy. It's like, okay, let's try this route. And so I'm like coming around this like really sharp corner, and it's dark. It's really dark. And I like kind of cross over like the center yellow line a little bit, but there's no one coming. And I like kind of pull back and I'm driving around, and then police lights flick on behind me. I was like, oh no. And so I pull over and the officer walks over and they're like, have you been drinking? I was like, no. They're like, well, what are you out driving late? I was like, we're all from Seattle. We're trying to get to Boise. We heard the highway's closed. We're trying to get in the route. We're not from around here. We're just city kids. We're just trying to figure out. And he's like, okay, no worries. Can I still have your license and registration? I was like, okay. And he comes back over. He's like, I just spoke to my buddy on the radio that we're not sure when the highway's going to open back up. It might be best to just like kind of buckle down and wait it out and see what happens. We're like, okay, thank you, sir. And then so we like doubled back around to the gas station and like tried to sleep some more. And then we eventually like we tried to take like some weird mountain route, and like we're like driving across this like one lane road. I don't even know where we're going. And then we reached snow at one point. And like this is a sedan. Like this car is not equipped for this. And I was like, guys, I don't think this is the route. And it was supposed to save us like an hour from a different route, and it ended up taking another hour to double back. And we were also supposed to stay at Christine's mom's house, but we were so far behind that we ended up like, when we actually got to Boise, like we got to the campus like right at like 8 or 9 a.m. whenever that first workshop was starting. So we just kind of like parked the car, rolled in, and just kind of went for it.
Commitment.
Truly striving for the highest.
Truly. I remember being in your car on the way home, and I remember like the mirror being a whole thing, and we were trying to also use the Bluetooth radio thing, and it was like really difficult. But I do remember we stopped and got, I don't know if it was like pho or noodles or something at a cute little restaurant. I don't know if you remember that, but it was a good time.
I just remember after that trip, my granddad was like, Gamma does not know how to road trip. Like anytime Gamma road trips, things go wrong, because she was the president that year. And so she was like walking around this convention on like Friday, I guess, like before the rest of us had shown up. And like brothers from like Theta and from like all these other places are just like, where is your chapter? Like, where is everyone? And she's Sarah Doty, she's like getting all these like texts from people like talking about snow or being stuck at McDonald's, or like everyone ranting about Pendleton, and she just like doesn't know what to do because her entire chapter like just isn't there. It's good times.
I think I must have dodged all of these bad experiences with travel, because I drove a bunch of people to Wagon last year at Oregon State University. Go Beavs. And then this year, go Beavs. And then this year, drove to Wazoo across the state. It was pretty okay. I think the worst thing that I've experienced is not really even my experience. It was Michelle Yu's experience. So this was last year going to Boise again, but for District Leadership Convention, which we axed this year. But essentially, I was leaving Friday evening for Boise for the flight because we didn't get a car for that. And Michelle Yu, our president at the time, had tried to get on her flight at 6 or 7 a.m. And this was during a government shutdown. And so, you know, TSA is moving really slow and she misses her flight, which is super unfortunate. And they keep on bumping her back flights. And eventually, at some point, I'm like checking in on her throughout the day. It's like, hey, did you go on this flight? And I start joking, like, what if you end up on my flight? And my flight is at like 8 or 9 p.m. And believe it or not, I got on the plane before her and was like, I really hope you get on this plane, because if you don't, that's going to suck, because there's no planes until tomorrow. And lo and behold, she gets on the plane. I think she was stuck in the airport for maybe 15 or 16 hours that day.
That's ridiculous. Thought you were gonna say that she ended up missing the whole convention. That would have been sad.
That would have been worse. But we got to stay with brothers from Iota Kappa, and they had 2 guinea pigs. It was fantastic.
Makes up for the whole thing.
Yeah.
Staying at Christine's house, she had, I think, a cat and a dog, and they're so sweet. And then down the road, she didn't have a horse, but her neighbors had a horse, and we all felt so cool, like getting to see all these animals out in the country.
I just love Christine's mom. Like,
Yes.
we all ended up just like loving her by like her being our like surrogate mother for the rest of the trip.
Yes. I loved their bathroom that's just like 100% decorated with rainbows. Even like the shower head has rainbow lights, and the inside of the toilet.
I remember it was either her or Christine talking about how like her mom tried to like submit for like the Guinness World Book of Records of like having the most collections of collections that like throughout, like there's in like the rainbow bathroom and then like all throughout the house, like there was just like collections of collections. And like I think she like wrote them a letter, and like they're like, we can't really like quantify this as you having the most because there's no way to really like say what it is.
I kind of remember that too. I remember the other collection of hers I really liked was all the blue glass in her kitchen. But I think we're still all part of a Facebook group chat that's like titled "We Love Christine's Mom" with a rainbow emoji.
Yes.
Should hit that up sometime.
I remember, speaking of our freshman years and going to events, I went to Wagon when I was not even a full active, and that was all. It was at University of Oregon that year, so I made the trip from Seattle to Oregon when I wasn't even fully active, and it was a really fun time. I met people from all over the state, and it was probably one of my other favorite events that I've been to.
Mm-hmm. I think something that I didn't realize when I was going through like education and stuff was how much like the brotherhood isn't just Gamma. It's not just the people at our school. It's going to these events and meeting people from other states, and like even like on Facebook, like reaching out to people who like, you know, are from like Beta Omicron. Like we have a really good relationship with them. And so like reaching out to them and talking to them about anything and like asking them questions. Like that was something totally unexpected, but also absolutely amazing.
I think the coolest thing, like in addition to like traveling to these events, but anytime like you meet someone who's a brother, or if like you see like some random person in letters, that it's, you know, after introducing like yourselves, you already have something in common, that it's like the brotherhood truly like does run deep, that it's like we're all band nerds, we all love playing music, we all love being involved in music, we all love service, and it's just something that it's just really amazing to like, you know, you can meet someone, you know, from the other side of the country and you already have something in common with them.
Something that happened this year was Caitlin had a friend in town from CU Boulder, who I think he's actually their president, or was. His name's Spencer, but we went to dinner at Schultz's with him and his other friend, and we just, I don't know, we talked about band all night, and it was so fun. And then months later, we're in this online it wasn't even the Western District, it was just DC district convention with chapters from all over the country. And so he was in it, and we were both in the same workshop. And so like maybe 30 minutes into this workshop, I'm looking at the chat, and I finally realized a long time ago there was a private message sent to me from him that was like, "Hi, how are you? What's up?" And so I finally responded, and we ended up having this conversation for like most of the rest of the workshop. Sorry to the presenter, but it was so great to connect with him again, and talk about how we're both really sad about graduation being online, and like how it's going to be hard to find a job after this, especially like with this pandemic. I don't know. It was just nice to like not just connect about band, but connect about these other things about being a college student and a senior.
Yeah, one of the great things about district events is that you also get to look at other chapters and how they function. It's, you know, these issues that happen at a chapter level aren't only affecting Gamma, they're affecting everybody. And it, you know, you find some sort of solace in seeing that everybody else is dealing with the same sorts of things. So it's really rewarding conversation. And I think another thing that comes out of that is that, you know, when people do come in town, or if you are going to an area that has a chapter, you might get some free lodging out of that. Because hitting up brothers, I had last year 2 brothers from Beta Omicron from Arizona State University, Rebecca and Brandon, come through, which, you know, just on a whim because they love Seattle, and they're great people. And this year for district officer retreat, when we went to San Jose State, their chapter president, Joseph, hosted us for 3 whole days. It was fantastic.
Fun story about Brandon when the Husky band when our football team made it to the Vegas Bowl this year. So it was Washington, and then it was also Boise State. So for the Iota Kappa chapter, Brandon, who lives in Las Vegas, who is not a UW student or a Boise State student, he just like his family lives there. He like reached out to both chapters. He's like, hey, what if we just like have a get together and like get some brothers together, and like I'll have my mom make dinner for us. And like it was like really cool, especially like Noelle and I went together. We like caught an Uber there, and like we've been like super stressed with like all like the student staff stuff that was like going on, and like half of our luggage like not making it on the plane. And like just to kind of like, it's you never get a home cooked meal on a band trip. And it was just really nice. Like the food was great, and like it was great company, and like there were only a couple Iota Kappa brothers there, but it was just kind of fun to like, it didn't really feel like it was a band trip where like there's usually like just like stress and like people doing dumb stuff. But it was just really cool like hanging out with other brothers, and like Brandon's such an amazing dude.
What kind of bums me out is that, going from year to year, it seems like there are less and less brothers that are able to travel to these events, which is super unfortunate because they're great for building relationships and just deepening your love for the fraternity. And I know not everybody has the same means of getting themselves to conventions, which is unfortunate, but I hope that eventually we can get the same numbers of Gamma people traveling to district events like we had our first year, because I think it's definitely going to benefit the chapter.
I think Gamma and like KKSI in general is definitely something that like the more you put into it, the more you participate, the more you're going to get out of it. And I think for some people that means going for leadership, and for some people that means traveling, for some people that means like leading projects, that kind of thing. And like your experience in Gamma is definitely one that like you're very much in control of, and it's your choice what you participate in. And that gives you a lot of like independence and freedom, and you can get so much out of it because of that.
Snaps to that. Those are wise words.
That's the true Shunky family head who was holding things down while I was at work this year during second degree.
Oh gosh. That's the thing, like Rotato is so much fun, like meeting all the MCs and having all the alumni over. So like, just like explain the event really quick. Basically, like the membership candidates get to go around to the different families and like get to meet all of them. And we not only have like the active members, but like the alumni as well. And so this year I hosted, and I was also cooking. And so you just spend like all day in the kitchen, like making every course and like feeding everybody, and you just like hear the laughter from like your living room as like Shunky is telling all these stories from like years and years ago. And like the MC, like Shunky is known for being loud, and like our family is just loud and like mildly annoying. And so like the membership candidates come in and they sit down, and like their eyes just like go big, and they're just so overwhelmed. And especially the ones who aren't in our family are just like terrified the entire time. And it's just like, it's so fun because I feel like that's when they begin to understand what brotherhood means. And it's right before they go through second degree, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful, and I love it so much, even though it's so much work and my feet were so sore at the end of the day. Like I just laid on the middle of my living room, like trying to get my feet to calm. It was great. It's great.
I think kind of adding on to that, one of my favorite things about Rotato, like especially like our first year going through, I remember, visiting, you start with like all of the three other families, and then you end your final meal with your own family. And I remember, going through, meeting the alumni, kind of getting to know some of the other brothers a little better. It's really the first time that there's like a whole bunch of time set aside like just for like meeting the other brothers. And especially like as a PM or as an MC, it's like it's a great time to like, have a conversation with a brother that, maybe they're not in your same section, or they're not someone that you normally like hang out with, and you never would have an excuse to hang out with them, and you just have like really cool memories. But I remember, going through and like learning like the stereotypes or like the different like vibes of each family. I kind of felt, I was like, okay, if I had a different big brother or ended up in a different family, I feel like I could have like kind of found my way to like fit into any other family. And then, having dinner of the final course, like with the Shep Craig family, it was like the first one was like, yeah, these are my people. This is where I fit in. And it was like super cool, especially like, hanging out with my big brother, and like I got to meet like the rest of my line of the like my grandbig and my great grandbig, who were both alumni at the time when I joined, and I still like maintain a good relationship with them.
Yeah, I remember after we went through like bid night, which is where like you get your official bid and everything, and like meeting the Shunkies, for some reason, like we went to dinner and everyone was really quiet. And like when I was in high school, I was definitely a very quiet person. And like going into college, I didn't want to be that person. And so I was like, oh crap, they put me with like the quiet family. Like I'm like still this person I was in high school. Everything sucks. And then I went to Rotato, and like there's all these old people who are just loud and like crazy. And I was like, okay, so I'm just like insane. I'm in like the crazy insane family. Perfect. And just realizing like the different personalities, and like you really, I don't know, you learn so much more about like the organization and about Gamma through meeting the alumni and through forming those relationships.
A really fun thing that the Shunky family did recently is we had a Zoom call that was Oliver actually set up for us, and a lot of alumni came to it, and it was really, really cool to see. Actually, I was looking at the tree and I was looking at who was there, and I realized that my grandbig was there, and I told her that I was her grand little. It was very cool. And just seeing, we had people from all over the world there. We had a brother from France. We had someone who is, it was crazy. It was a really good time.
Mm-hmm. And I remember with that, it was almost like more alumni than active. So it was really interesting seeing all of them reconnect and like talk about their lives and what's happened since Gamma and how Gamma's impacted them and that kind of thing. And to see them like with their kids like running around and stuff, and everyone being like, I don't know, just how much they reconnected. And really, it was like they didn't miss a beat. Like their friendships were still so like close, and they were still like, it was beautiful.
Yeah, I think Shunkies over the years have still had our chaotic energy, but I think in recent years have had more additions to our family that were a little more quiet.
For sure.
So welcome anybody from any walk of life. I mean, I can be super loud, but also super quiet at the same time. But yeah.
I also, going off of that, I think that Shunkies as a thing, maybe we aren't as loud anymore, but we all have like big personalities. Maybe not loud, maybe not small, like maybe not quiet, but I think we're just like, everyone's very, very distinct. But I think that's Gamma as a whole, but I've realized that I agree with Oliver that it's switched a little bit.
I think one of the cool things about Gamma is, again, like how diverse it is by like the different kinds of people. I remember it was like near the end of winter quarter, like before like pandemic hit and stuff happened, we did the Myers-Briggs test, and we like all got into groups like of like all the different 16 personalities, and it was kind of cool like seeing that even though there's 16 different options, I think except for maybe like one or two, we had at least one person that fit into like each different category. It was kind of interesting seeing that you kind of need, one of the things that's so amazing about Gamma, and like we're one of the older chapters, but I kind of forget about this, but like we actually like do very well as a chapter, like compared to like some others that only have like like 10 or 15 people, and we have like upwards of 60. Is that you really need a little bit of everything in order to function. Like if you have all extroverts, like you're not going to know, especially as a service fraternity, you're not going to know how to reach out to an introverted community or people, how to like pivot your projects towards people who are more introverted, because all you have are extroverts. And so having that diversity and that balance between all the different groups, all the different types of people, really, really makes Gamma special. And I think which makes us like really great on some of our projects.
I remember we did that actually previously to this year. I don't remember what exactly year it was. And additional thing that we did the past time was you had to find the person that was your like exact opposite, which was cool. And I remember that my exact opposite was Michele, and it was just very, very cool to see how we communicate with each other, and with like our complete opposite with personalities.
And even like in our interests outside of band, there's a huge amount of diversity. So like sometimes we'll go, like Maria had a show that she was performing in, and a bunch of us went, and there was like an entire section of chairs that was all just Gamma. And it's just cool to like go to these random events that are completely unrelated to band just to like support one another and be there for one another. And like other times people will be like, oh, I'm playing in a pit and we need this person, and like how you can kind of network within the chapter and find really cool, like unique opportunities just because we are so big and we are so diverse.
Yeah, I think Gamma's it's a cool place to network with. And again, like even on a fraternity level, like I know a lot of people have like gotten jobs, like alumni, like because of like a brother they knew from another university. But one of the things that happened last year is every year on the 4th of July, there's a naturalization ceremony at Seattle Center. And I always help my grandmother with it. She's one of the people that helps run it. And usually I get like in the past, like I did it through most of high school. I would get like my high school friends to help me, and usually my brother and his, at the time, girlfriend and fiance and now wife would also help me. But last year, my brother was on his honeymoon. And so like, I was like, well, shoot, now I don't have him as a resource. I don't have all his friends. And so I just decided during, when I knew I was going to be helping and I knew that they were going to be gone towards the end of spring quarter, I like just said, I was like, hey, I'm going to be working at this event. If anyone wants to help volunteer, it's really cool. Like hit me up. And I think there were like 5 or 6 brothers. They're like, yeah, I'll come help out. And it was really cool. And especially because most of like my friends weren't really like servicey type people. They weren't necessarily music people. They would like do like some volunteer work, but not like to the level of stuff that we do. But it was so cool, like seeing like the change of like these are people that have a strong work ethic that like are really good as like, if you tell them to do something, like they'll get it done right the first time, or that it's like, even if you don't tell them to do something, they'll notice like, oh, hey, this needs to get done, and they'll get right to it. It was just really cool, especially seeing it like outside of a music service, like just kind of like general community type of thing, which is really, really awesome.
I think in terms of music, we've also increased in both like our own musicality and also supporting the arts on campus and around the greater Seattle area, because of all of the ensembles that we formed over the years to just perform for brothers or to get people ready for auditions if they're sort of nervous. Remember last year, I think, Michelle, you set up our trip to the Seattle Orchestra or Symphony Orchestra to watch or listen to Pixar music. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we're having a lot more engagement with upper campus bands, like through concert receptions, which I think is great. I think the chapter's trending in a good direction.
I think over the last 4 years, something that I feel like has really changed is like how vocal we are about the changes that we want to make in the chapter. When I was going through education, I don't think I really realized what I was in for. Whereas like I didn't realize the issues and the things that people maybe didn't like about the chapter, the things that people wanted to work on within the chapter. Versus now, when people are going through education and like doing their interviews and getting to know actives, they're like, oh, well, I heard about this thing in chapter. Like, what do you think? And talking to them about these issues and how we want to change it, especially talking to people who are, freshmen, it's like they have 4 years to make these changes that maybe we haven't gotten to address yet, and we're about to graduate and really can't do anything about it. And so it's just like exciting to have that kind of momentum and those, issues brought up at like quite a young age, and see like what kind of new ideas, creative ideas do they have to really address the things that we've been seeing since we've been freshmen.
You said young age and it made me feel really old.
We are.
I don't like it.
Like, that's why we're in this podcast right now, is because we are old.
I felt the same way.
Yeah.
Also,
We're old. I'm just
more
gonna say this is Squawk Talk. And
Yeah.
leave it at that.
Old
Also,
talk.
our wives-
Old people rambling.
Do we give a backstory on like why it's called Squawk Talk?
Do it.
Okay.
I feel like
I don't like remember exactly how this evolved, but I think it was after we had like all started education and we had like been attending chapter meetings more regularly because we had to. But I remember at the end of a chapter meeting when after we sing the hymn and the chapter president shouts out like the KK and then everyone responds with Sayi. I was like, this is so cool. The Alpha Iotas should come up with like our own like call and response thing. And I'm kind of known for like making weird noises and like screams and screeches, and like I did that all through like marching season, and like that was when like I met most of the brothers, and like it kind of like continued through education. And I don't remember who I brought it up to. I feel like it might have been like Tristan or like someone, I don't know. But I was like, what if we did this? It was like we do like an alpha, and then everyone responds with like iota, and I like he did it or someone else did it, and like I did the iota with like a a purposeful voice crack, and I think more people just kind of started picking it up, and then it became our group chat name, and this is the Squawk Talk.
A look into the mind of Jamia. Coming up with sayings from day one.
I feel like too, like thinking about this year and like how much of it is now online, and thinking about last year and all the snow and how much that membership class also kind of missed out on, and just talking with all of you guys now and like reminiscing about everything that we did when we were so young. Like it's really sad to me to see like them missing out on all these really cool opportunities that for us have been like defining moments in Gamma. And like how do we, you know, keep that going when these next two classes just haven't gotten the chance to experience it yet?
I feel like too, most of the stories I've told so far today came from freshman year, and it was like really freshman year that like solidified like the base of the bond and like an appreciation for music at a deeper level than I had in high school, because in high school I did not try very hard. But like, I don't know. Yeah, freshman year was like where it like set me up to want to stay for the rest of the 4 years. So it is kind of sad.
And I feel like too, as we've all gotten older, we have so much other stuff to work on. So like it's fun to like talk to you guys and like reminisce about these times that like we don't get to regularly talk about.
Reminisce that when times were simpler.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we're actually going to hang out. I'm going to make it happen. I still have the list of ideas for hangouts. So once quarantine is over.
Yeah, we got to go ice skating. We never did that. Like freshman year, we all said that we would go ice skating.
We went, no, that was just like a brotherhood event where we went ice skating. But then like our class was going to go ice skating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think
so
we should all go kayaking.
Yes.
Kayaking is really good social distancing because you can't be more than within like 6 feet of each other anyways, because you'd hit each other's paddles. So it's like perfect. As long as you're in like separate kayaks, you can't be in like the same one unless you're from the same household. But like, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, other things I have on the list that I just pulled up was a picnic at Gasworks, biking places, movie marathon or something, ice skating, bonfire with s'mores.
Can we do all of these?
Laser
please?
tag, a fancy dinner with dressing
Can
up.
all be like one day of events. Like we just take an entire day and just have like a giant like Alpha Iota group date.
Like we should see if there's like a National Old Person's Day in America or something. And then on that day we go do these things because we're
an
old.
event relay, and a relay event day.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Elderly Appreciation Day.
It's gonna happen. Don't worry. And I guess that about wraps it up. Thank you all for being here today, and thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in to Squawk Talk, episode 2 of Gamma's podcast, Downbeat. This is the
Alpha
Alpha
Iotas.
Iota.
class signing off.